Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Lisa Love, and this is continuing our series in 10 evolutionary groups, How Humans Evolve as Understood by a woman named Alice Bailey. And in this particular video, we're going to take a look at Group 5. So these 10 evolutionary groups are divisions attempting to show how humans progress from their baser animal instincts, where they are focused mainly on surviving and procreating, to the point where they know who they are as spiritual beings and live accordingly. And according to Bailey, humans of all 10 groups are said to exist among us. Those in the first 6 groups primarily are focused on becoming human, groups 7 and 8 on becoming soul, groups 9 and 10 on becoming spirit. Now, Bailey has divided those into 3 main stages. That's a separate video. You're welcome to go watch that. But in general, she doesn't use the phrases becoming human, soul, and spirit. She uses for this stage becoming the integrated personality. And that means that groups 1 through 6 are on the path of individuation, which means that they're learning how to become an individual. They start out, first of all, by recognizing that they are an individual and that they are separate from Mother Nature, so to speak. And by group 6, they have fully individuated. And we're going to see how those in group 5 are closer to that process, but especially in the next video, group 6, we're going to understand a lot more what that looks like. So this video is again about group 5. And as a reminder, those within the stage of becoming human or the integrated personality are pretty much focused on the realm of the 5 senses. You get up in the morning, you open your eyes, you look out into the world, and whatever you see, hear, feel, touch, taste, smell, that's pretty much what your world is about. And it's pretty much a general process of getting sufficient mastery, starting out with group 1, having very little mastery over the body, the emotions, and the mind, to group 6, having a great deal of mastery over those body, emotions, and mind for the purpose of exploiting the outer world. Now, we are told in the Bailey model, at least, that those in groups 3, 4, and 5 are the most numerous on our planet, with group 5 actually being said to be the most numerous, according to her model. Now, what does that mean? Well, these groups are primarily focused on fulfilling their desires for money, security, pleasure, sex, and increasingly, starting more and more with group 5, power. That's not that hard to understand. If you go look out at the world and just see, go to any downtown area, turn on most television, etc., what are most people interested in? Money, buildings on banks, how to make money, how to buy homes, where to get security for your homes, insurance, etc., how to entertain yourself, how to get pleasure. Lots and lots out there about sex, and more curiosity about how to get power than those that really have power to accomplish all their desires in the outer world. These groups reside on the emotional plane in Bailey's model. We're going to look at that again in a moment. And they tend to be subject to a lot of highs and lows in regards to their emotions, with those in group 3 being the most emotionally impulsive, and group 5 being the most emotionally controlled, but in a repressed way. We'll hear that word over and over again, repression, in this video. And group 4 being in between the two, sometimes being overly impulsive, sometimes being more emotionally controlled. But again, all are locked within the realm of the 5 senses, and all are primarily focused on getting their desires met. The emotional plane is also known as the plane of karma, or desire. And when their desires don't get met, what do they tend to do? They tend to not view it as something internal inside themselves that they need to look at or they need to master. They tend to see it as something out there that stopped them, whether it's a devil projected out there that stopped them or other people out there that stopped them. It's pretty much you out there, whatever you are, stopped me, frustrated me from getting my desires met. And that's what life's about. And maybe if you're lucky, Even if your desires were frustrated here, something will happen and you'll die and you go to a heaven somewhere and you'll get all your desires met there. Interesting, because the heaven that they eventually go to is pretty much a duplication of what life on earth looks like, only you just get a lot more of it finally. That's if you were good. Otherwise, you go the other direction. You go to hell. So group 5, we learn in Esoteric Psychology, Volume 2, page 206, that's an Alice Bailey book, is an extension of what we talked about regarding group 4. But unlike the more highly emotional group 4 people, those in group 5 have, quote, steadily increasing interludes wherein the mind can make itself momentarily felt, and thus at times of need effect important decisions. In other words, we see that those in group 5 have more of a mental body, but as we're going to take a look at in just a little bit, what we mean by a mental body is that it's still dominated primarily by desire. Essentially, Esoteric Psychology Volume 2 reveals that unlike those in Group 4, those in Group 5 are capable of having more logical, rational, and less emotionally based thoughts when needed. And that's the significant 2 words, when needed, to help them navigate the world and the social groups around them, especially where their most important interests are concerned. That means those in Group 5, I have to move this, it's covering up my text, are capable of making much better decisions, helping them manage the outer world more successfully, even though almost all of these decisions are governed by their conditioning. That's a very important point here. Now that conditioning starts already in Group 4, and I call Group 4 the conformist. Group 5 is also conformist, but I actually use a different name for them, the enforcers, because for me, they're trying to enforce the conditioning that they've been indoctrinated into. And they're governed by that conditioning that has told them what is right and what is wrong, and typically that's what they were raised to believe, or maybe early on in their teens or 20s they rebelled and found another group that they joined that taught them what to believe in terms of what is right, what is wrong, how to live out there in the external world. And all of that is primarily conditioning that's given to them by the cultural, social, and religious systems that they're a part of. Esoteric Psychology Volume 2 goes on to state that those in Group 5 are, quote, largely controlled by mass consciousness because they're relatively unthinking, and that's the word, relatively unthinking. That doesn't mean that they can't think. They do think. They just find it difficult to have independent thought outside of their social conditioning. That's why they're relatively unthinking, because they don't really question the assumptions, too much of their conditioning, and what they've been raised with enough. And we'll learn in this video why a lot of that is so. Some of it is because by clinging heavily to that conditioning, they have a greater sense of stability in the world, more sense of order, a sense of place in the world, and growing self-esteem. And none of this is something to be looked down at. For thousands of years, human beings have been working to try and get a sense of stability. Mother Nature was overwhelming and pretty much ate us up alive, literally, for thousands of years. So the fact that we finally have some control, some order, is really significant. And because of the ability to repress their emotions and master and control their impulsive behaviors better and fit in better into the cultural, society, religious system around them, those in Group 5 feel better about themselves. That's part of that growing self-esteem. So these are important landmarks that all of us go through and all of us need to have. I'd like to make another quick point here, which you've heard in previous videos. When I talk about Group 5, it's not like Group 5 is some group out there. All of us have all these groups to some level within us. We all go through the stages of Group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if we keep evolving 6, 7, 8, whatever level that we're at, we recapitulate it, to use a word that Bailey and other theosophists have used, like Rudolf Steiner, etc. That means when we're born, we are known to go through all of these different groups. And in times of stress, we can regress back to certain behaviors in different ones of these groups. So really in the Bailey model, and they talk about cleavages there, or gaps in development is a way that I like to put it. We have to be careful not to think of anybody as just a member of one group. We're really a member of a lot of groups with different percentages of different groups being dominant within us. Now, it is important that we have healthy functioning as we go through all these different groups. And here we have a model that was developed by Abraham Maslow. I have another video that you can look for that talks about how Maslow and a lot of the transpersonal psychology movement, even the integral psychology movement, was originally influenced by theosophical ideas and even Alice Bailey's ideas, whether they're aware of it anymore or not. Direct connections, for example, with Jean Gebser and a group that Alice Bailey was a part of. So anyway, that's a different video. I don't want to digress too much on that. But this is a model that was developed by Abraham Maslow, a transpersonal psychologist, and this is his famous hierarchy of needs chart. And we have here the different needs, starting with the physiological needs and the safety and security needs, and groups 1 and 2 are pretty much working through these. Then we go on to love and belonging, and groups 3 and 4 are primarily working through these. And then group 5 takes it up another level into self-esteem. So pretty much Maslow's hierarchy of needs covers Bailey's groups 1 through 5, and actually his self-actualization, as I've compared the two models, really is more connected to Bailey's group 6. So Abraham Maslow's model pretty much fits within her integrated personality or becoming human first stage of development. So self-esteem includes, coming over here, respect for oneself, because you're better able to be reliable and dependable, which in turn gains you the respect and or trust of others. This dependability happens because group 5 members are able to think and manage their emotions and behaviors better. Yes, they often do that through suppression, but that suppression allows them to benefit from the religious, cultural, and societal rules and norms more than those in groups 4, and certainly more than those in groups 3 are able to do. Why? Because those in groups 4 and 3 possess less thought and are much more inclined to emotional impulse. Now you notice I'm not talking much about groups 1 and 2. Go watch the class I did on groups 1 and 2 if you want to know more about it. But basically groups 1 and 2 are just, and there's hardly, according to Bailey's theory, anybody in those groups left on the planet. They're primarily just trying to learn to coordinate the physical body and get themselves orientated into the physical world. So unlike group 3 and 4 members who frequently cannot control their emotions, group 5 members learn to regulate those emotions, but they do it through suppression. This suppression, as I said, allows them to conform to the societal, religious, and cultural norms. And their willing conformity makes group 5 members, as I said, more trustworthy, dependable, and reliable, which increases their stability and comfort, meaning that order can finally emerge out of the chaos in their lives. So they are the middle class, the upper middle class. They are those people that tend to be intelligent by our standards, but that intelligence, as we will see momentarily, is still dictated by a lot of desire for what they can get in the realm of the 5 senses, and still by emotion. Because they benefit so much from this sense of order, group 5 members become invested in maintaining that order. And that's why I see them more as the enforcers than the conformist. Bailey uses that word conformist with them, but I prefer enforcers, which I've said a few times now. So here we have the Bailey model as used in her book. This is a version that I have made of it so that you can better see the personality levels. We're trying to integrate to be a personality, but I read her book and see that integration process to become a personality as coming up this far, up into her emotional plane. Of course, the personality bracket here continues to go up to this dotted line in her model. To me, that's where we become the soul infused personality. This is the egoic lotus, or the soul. Here I've made it more evident for you to see. And this soul infused personality, which is her stage 2, is trying to get this personality, which then is less selfish and becomes an individuality. That individuality becomes infused with soul values. Then we have something called the spiritual triad and the monad. We're not going to talk about those here. That's for later videos. But most of humanity, again, in her model, is said to be within groups 3, 4, and 5. 5 is the most dominant, according to her. 4 is the second most dominant. 3 is the third most dominant. And they reside pretty much on the emotional plane. I created this circle just a little bit above, because maybe they go a little bit above. Bailey herself doesn't say exactly what subplanes these different groups are in, but in my reading and rereading, I've read all of her books at least 5 times through. Most of her books, if you could see, are in tatters. I've been reading them for decades, and then went onto the internet and started the research there. So this is my best estimation of how things pull together in her system. Always open to being shown the error of my ways, if you want to show me that. But this is pretty much, after decades of working through it, where I'm settling down to. So I see group 5 as primarily within this range here on the emotional plane. Now that's going to surprise a lot of Bailey people, because they're used to considering this here, called the plane of the lower mind, on the mental plane. These 4 subplanes, they're called 1, 2, 3, 4, plane of the lower mind, as being the lower concrete mind. But I have documentation from the Bailey books that that's not necessarily so in her system. We're going to look at that right now. For example, Bailey has 6 kinds of mind that she outlines. On the emotional plane, we have instinctual mind, lower concrete mind. Most Bailey students will be surprised to see that there. And what she calls personality mind, which actually has a lot of abstract mind within it. So that means we have to start taking a look at, well, what does she mean then when she says on the mental plane there's lower concrete mind? She does use the phrase there, but if you really research it, it's used in a different way than here. What she calls son of mind and abstract mind, which again is really different than how most of us think about the abstract mind. So here are some conclusions that I've come to in terms of following her system. Again, most groups 4, 5, and 6 are on the emotional plane, using then instinctual mind, which is primarily groups 1, 2, and 3, lower concrete mind, which is primarily groups 4 and 5, personality mind, which is primarily groups 5 and 6. Then we start the spiritual path, and we start to cultivate these. So what is concrete mind like on the emotional plane? It is observing the outer world. It is opening up our 5 senses, observing the outer world, and it can even include some concrete scientific logical reasoning. That is why those in group 5 have some logical reasoning. But when we use lower concrete mind on the mental plane, it is that mind beginning, notice it's just the beginning stages, just the beginning down here, to observe the inner world. That's a really different process in her system. On the emotional plane, the integrated personality is immersed and attached to the outer world through the concrete mind. What's real is what I observe out there. I usually don't understand it when I'm in groups 1 and 2, understand it a little better in groups 3 and 4, understand it a lot better in groups 5 and 6. But I'm immersed in it. I'm attached to it. I'm karma, desire, Monastic, another phrase used for the emotional plane. My mind is conditioned by desire and attachment to the outer world. That is different than on the mental plane, where the soul-infused personality, here is the soul, has now infused the personality because it includes the personality all the way up here, is used, the concrete mind is now helping us to detach, observe, and consciously create thought. Again, really different. And if you understand these distinctions and get into her model, you will be a lot less confused. So what is the abstract mind? It's not what most people think of as abstract mind. Abstract mind, when it comes to solving questions like, what would it be like if we lived on Mars? Or what will my life look like 20 years from now? Is really different. And in fact, we have plenty of research in modern day psychology that proves that almost all human beings have abstract mind at that level. So surely we're not talking about most of humanity being up here on the mental plane. Bailey doesn't put them there. And in fact, that's because what Bailey means by the word abstract is really different than how most people are using abstract mind. That's why most of humanity has abstract mind, because most of humanity is groups 3, 4, 5, and mergingly, increasingly, into 6. They're not very much group 7, 8, 9, and 10. Why? Because there, Bailey, and I have been able to document this, uses the word abstract in a different way. By abstract, she means absorb, to abstract, to remove something from, to absorb it. So on the mental plane, abstract mind, which takes place at this level on what she calls the plane of the solar angel, up here where the soul is, means that the soul is abstracting or absorbing the selfish personality tendencies so that they are burned up into the consuming fire of God, allowing that soul infused personality, not an integrated personality, which is still primarily very selfish down here in the emotional plane, but the soul infused personality, which is up here at the top of the mental plane, is the soul infuses the personality here to be a demonstration of God as love. Plain and simple. The will to love intelligently, according to the divine plan, according to divine principles and qualities. That's really different. And groups 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are not there. They're here. Here we have that same model again. And now it's going to be easier for those of you like me that are also interested in the integral system. I have degrees in transpersonal psychology. I followed the integral model for a long time. Since it first emerged, basically. And before that, I got my first book in 1989, Transformations of Consciousness, and then The Spectrum of Consciousness. So I've been chasing down the integral model for some time, pretty much parallel with my understanding of the Bailey model. So that's why I'm fascinated with the comparisons. And if you understand the Bailey model, those comparisons are easy to make. So let's make some. First of all, in the integral model, notice that they have something similar to groups. We have, well, they call this magenta. Let me go down here. Infrared, magenta, red, amber. These are like Bailey's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Only Bailey's system doesn't quite line up totally with integral system. It does in part, and we'll learn more about that at the end of this video. But integral is what they call expert. It's like amber expert. Here's the word amber. Here's the word expert. Is pretty similar to Bailey's group 5. But as you will see in this video, there are some distinctions, because in this video, what integral starts to talk about as like tribal red really in Bailey's model exists a lot more at her group 5 level. So we'll go on with that and find out how that's so. Again, this is about where I put group 5 in Bailey's model. Now in integral, notice you have these words pre-conventional, conventional in their thinking. That's like conformist in their thinking in the Bailey model. And then over here, we have around here, this is similar to group 4 in Bailey's model. Amber expert is more like group 5 in Bailey's model. We have concrete operations to formal operations. That's like Bailey's lower concrete mind and personality mind in her system. So there are the parallels there. All right, let's get into talking more about what group 5 is like. And as in the other videos, I'm going to put video clips in here because I think it makes it seem more alive and more real to actually see how this is playing out in our world and playing out in us. All of us have group 5 that ideally has been developed in a healthy way. We all must develop groups 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in a healthy way if we're going to move into the spiritual path on groups 7, 8, 9, and 10. If we don't, Bailey calls it cleavages. I like the word gaps. We have gaps in development, and we will play Chutes and Ladders as a game I played as a kid. I've talked about this in other videos, where we're going to go up and down in these developmental stages where we think we may be, let's say, at group 8, and then we have a crisis happen because we didn't complete our developmental steps on group 5, and we're back down to being like group 5 people. That's why the healthy development is so important. And that's one of the things that Bailey addresses in her system that I've always enjoyed. So what does group 5 want? They want to know and follow the rules so that they can get that stability. They want to master a trade. You know, group 3, we saw that in that video, kind of. I used Bonnie and Clyde as an example. They just kind of go out there and impulsively shoot up, you know, things. They were starting to master the trade of bank robbery a little bit, but, you know, Bonnie and Clyde died really young, like 19 and 21. I mean, and their run was only for a couple of years. That's not exactly mastering a trade. If they'd become like a mafiosa and had done this for decades, maybe they'd mastered it better here. Maybe they had gained expertise at that level. But group 3 doesn't really have that ability. Neither does group 4. That's why they're going to be more in lower minimum wage jobs, because they haven't been given that opportunity. They haven't developed the ability to truly gain expertise in something. So group 5 likes to create and follow rituals and rules. That helps you maintain order. They like to conform to and, my word, enforce the norms. That way they can maintain order. And they do that by protecting their tribal group. So they are very invested in protecting their tribes at this level. Tribes start to form at group 3, but tribes are protected in Bailey's model at group 5. So now I want to show a video, and this is something that I'm taking out from Fiddler on the Roof here. And this is the song Tradition. And so in this particular video, I'm using some musicals. I love musicals, but anyway, I think that they are illustrating some of my points here. So Tevye, the reason why it's called Fiddler on the Roof, he starts out before this video clip, this particular one cut it off. It was literally just about a minute before, pointing to a fiddler on the roof. And why is that significant? It's kind of crazy to have somebody up there fiddling on top of a roof. Well, what that's trying to emphasize is that it's difficult to keep balance in the world. It's difficult to stay out of chaos, but you do it if you do one thing: you have traditions. Let's listen in.
And how do we keep our balance? That I can tell you in one word: tradition! traditions. We've kept our balance for many, many years. Here in Anatevka, we have traditions for everything. How to sleep, how to eat, how to work, how to wear clothes. For instance, we always keep our heads covered and always wear a little prayer shawl. This shows our constant devotion to God. You may ask, how did this tradition get started? I'll tell you. I don't know. But it's a tradition. And because of our traditions, every one of us knows who he is and what God expects him to do.
Day and night must scramble for a living, feed a wife and children, send his daily request, and who has the right, as master of the house, to have the final word at home? The Papa! The Papa! Tradition! The Papa! The Papa! Tradition! Who must know the way to make a proper home, a quiet home, a kosher home? Who must raise a family and run the home, so Papa's free to read the holy book? The Mama, the Mama, tradition. The Mama, the Mama, tradition. At 3 I started Hebrew school, at 10 I learned a trade. I hear they picked a bride for me, I hope she's pretty.
And who does Mama teach? To mend and tend and fix, preparing her to marry whoever Papa picks. The daughters, tradition.
The Papa,
The daughters.
So that's as far as I'm going to go in that particular video, but it really does outline some of the essential things about Group 5. And that is they've learned to create that order, that balance, so the fiddler doesn't fall off the roof because they know the rules and because they follow the rules. And they are starting to learn. They're starting to learn from the Holy Book, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of it is, you know, he's asked, why do we do certain things? I don't know. We just follow the tradition. Now, this particular clip was about a Jewish tradition. It can be Christian or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist or whatever traditions you follow them because that way everybody knows their place, they know what's expected of them, they know how to keep peace and stability within their group. And that is important to help keep peace and harmony. But here's the problem, and you see this in the Fiddler on the Roof movie. If you haven't seen it and you want to watch it, go ahead and do so because it'll give you a real education in Group 5. What happens when the outside world starts to creep in? In other words,
And how
let me go here. In General Esoteric Psychology, Volume 2, page 2006 says that Group 5 members are nice people, and they are. They live their lives and want peace. But it's easy to be a nice person when your physiological safety, security, belonging, and self-esteem needs are met. As I said, the fiddler keeps his balance on the roof. But what happens, as I was saying, when the status quo is threatened? If people don't want to play nice, when things start to change, we see that in the movie, The Fiddler on the Roof. We see that his 3 daughters, one keeps the traditions and the other 2 push it. The third one pushes it so far, he doesn't know what to do, Tevye that we saw singing at the beginning. He doesn't know how to handle that daughter. How do you deal with people who have different ideas, norms, beliefs, cultural, societal, and religious from you, especially if those people step into your territory and threaten to change and upset everything you've worked to achieve for so long? Now, it's easy for some of us that want to think we're integral or Alice Bailey or more advanced. You know, we can do this same kind of thing. Bailey says, or integral says, or our traditions say, and then what we can tend to do if we're falling into group 5 tactics are the things I'm going to outline in this video. So all of us have group 5 within us, and if we haven't learned to deal with it in a healthy way, we're going to do the things, especially that I show at the end of this video clip. Now I want to say something real quick. Those of you that watched my video on group 4, you notice that I put a clip from The Hobbits in there. Well, in a way, the clip from Fiddler on the Roof could seem like The Hobbits, only there's a real difference. In the Hobbit clip, they were busy just kind of drinking, smoking pipeweed, hitting on each other, you know, enjoying life and being lazy for the most part. That's not what you see here in this Fiddler on the Roof clip. That's not what you see with group 5. They're busy, they're being responsible, they're busy working, they're learning the rules, they're learning how to follow the rules, they're trying to be spiritual, they're trying to know how to be spiritual, and they're trying to follow the rules to be spiritual. They're much more concerned, again, with norms and conforming to those norms and enforcing those norms than we see group 4 people do. Group 4 are conforming, but in a more undisciplined way. Group 5 is conforming in a more disciplined way, in part because they have plenty of people around. They're going to enforce the rules, whether it's the papa or the rabbi, or to use the Fiddler on the Roof, or the priest, or whoever it is. They're going to enforce those rules, or the local policeman, if you don't behave. So worse, what if some people inside your culture, religion, or society start to change and begin to lose respect for you? What do you do? Now, at first, you can gently try to persuade these people to change their views back to yours. And if they're not willing to do this, well, maybe you can encourage them to leave town. But if those outsiders are nonconformers, and sometimes they may come from within your own group, they were conformers, now they're nonconformers. That happened in the Fiddler on the Roof movie. If they don't play along the way you want them to, you might have to try other approaches. We're going to illustrate that throughout this video. One approach isn't as nice as before. In short, you start to become what I call the enforcer. And here's where nice people can become scarily cruel. Now, Tevye wasn't scary cruel, but he was pretty cruel to his third daughter. That's one of the things that we see. But he was still a nice person. He was just being cool for reasons that made sense to him. She wasn't following the rules. She wasn't following traditions. Of course, group 5 people, as I just said, don't see themselves as mean or cruel. They're good people. Group 3, they may see themselves as mean and cruel, but they don't care. They impulsively go around breaking rules. They're like the anti-heroes. Group 4 people are the undisciplined ones who don't have enough self-respect, and so they spend their days indulging their addictive and lazy behaviors. They wouldn't see it that way, but that's how group 5 people would see them. Group 5 people, they have more discipline. They have more self-control. That self-control, however, is really, a word you're going to hear me say a lot, a form of repression, where emotions and impulses are kept in place because you follow traditions, rules, know how to fit in and belong. You know what is expected of you, and you do it. Those who don't do what is expected, those who don't follow the rules, have to be managed somehow, or they will threaten the existing order and the chaos. I just had to check something there. So in summary, group 5 wants things to be constant. They want people to conform for security and a sense of belonging. And they need to maintain the status quo to feel safe. So when you're looking out there in the world and you see different groups feeling insecure and trying to get other people to conform to their rules, it's because they don't feel safe anymore. People aren't conforming to their traditions, their norms, and they're getting afraid. They don't feel safe. How do they handle it? Well, again, they tend not to do much insight into themselves. Instead, they use a variety of different methods. So their emotions are typically either repressed or displaced. Displacement is basically a defense mechanism, which is a form of the blame game. It's not me, it's you. You know, you're not conforming to the norms and rules. You're not doing what the good book says. I know I read the good book. You haven't read the good book, or you read another book that's the wrong book. So, you know, you're in the wrong group. So therefore, it's you and not me again. Or they could try repression. Repression is where I just simply wall off my own feelings, or I wall off you. I build a wall to get rid of you. I just tune you out and watch TV and don't listen to you. I do whatever I can to wall off or block you out so I don't have to deal with you. They're bonded to others so long as others conform to their norms. You don't do what I want, you're out of here. You can even be my own child. And we see that in Fiddler on the Roof. You're disowned. You're not playing by the rules. I have to enforce them. You're gone. Their ethics are also determined by cultural, social, and religious groups. They consider themselves good people. They're doing what's expected of them. They're playing by the norms and rules that the society and culture is setting for them and letting them get away with. So according to them, they're ethical. They're good people. If you don't think so, that's you. You're the one that has the problem. So now in this particular video, I'm going to set this up. I told you we're going to hear musicals in this particular class. This is from the musical Les Miserables, which is based on the book by Victor Hugo. And let me set this up. This character that you see here is a man named Javert. Now, Javert is a policeman, an enforcer, and he is after a man named Jean Valjean, who happened to steal a loaf of bread to feed himself and some of the people that he cared about that were hungry, got caught and went to prison, and was in prison for a very long time, but escaped. I forget how long it was. Maybe it was as long as 10 years. I'd have to watch the musical again to know for sure. Anyway, Jean Valjean escapes, and Javert has been trying to hunt him down for a long time. So one of the things I like about this particular video that you're going to watch is, first of all, notice the level of pride that Javert has, the level of self-esteem and self-respect. We saw that somewhat in Tevye. Tevye was more like, in the Fiddler on the Roof clip, more like a kind of 4 and 5 person, group 4 and 5. But Javert is very much a group 5 person. We see his dignity, his pride, the way the actor is holding himself, playing the role of Javert as he's singing it, the confidence, the sense of assurity that he has in himself, in his world. He's going to be singing about stars, which is the order of the universe, and how everything is ordered, and he's going to conform to that order. So having set that up, here we go.
There, out in the darkness, a fugitive running, fallen from God, fallen from grace. God be my witness, I never shall yield till we come face to face. Till we come face to face. He knows his way in the dark. Mine is the way of the Lord. Those who follow the path of the righteous shall have their reward. And if they pull as loose of a pair, the flame, the sword. Stars in your multitudes, scarce to be counted, filling the darkness with order and light. You are the sentinels, silent and sure, keeping watch in the night, keeping watch in the night. You know your place in the sky. You hold your course and your aim, and each in your season returns and returns, and is always the same. And if you fall as a Lucifer, you fall in vain. And so it must be, for so it is written on the doorway to paradise, that those who falter and those who fall must pay the price. Lord, let me find him, that I may see him safe behind bars. I will never rest till then. This I swear by the stars.
So outside of the fact that I love his singing, so one of the things that I feel that this really conveys, the confidence, the security, it does feel good if you are somebody that has struggled in your life and you've had maybe abuse, and actually we find out that the character Javert had a pretty traumatic childhood growing up. It feels so good to have finally arrived at a point where you've got dignity, you've got nice clothes, you're respected by people, you can rely from day to day that you're going to have your needs met. Other people look up to you. You know what the world is all about. It makes sense to you. It has order like the stars. I mean, you can go to sleep at night and feel safe and feel good about yourself. And you know that you're doing the right thing in life. You can really get how that feels for us as we went through our group 5 stages successfully. If we didn't, we get to drop back down to group 5 and redo these steps, because it really is important to get these developmental things right in our lives. If we go into the other groups, Bailey talks to some extent about how we're going to have problems and a lot of, she calls them glamours, difficulties, if we don't go through these stages correctly. So as we see with the character of Javert, he's got to do something about Jean Valjean. It's simply wrong in his book that a criminal escapes from prison. He's not thinking that maybe it was wrong that Jean Valjean was there in the first place, 10 hard years of labor for stealing some bread because you were hungry. I mean, really? But he's not thinking that. That's not his rule book. And any of us can fall into that. It's not our rule book. So we're not willing to think outside the box and go beyond that. That's a group 5 problem. But anyway, he's in group 5. So it's not in his rule book. So he's got to manage Jean Valjean, to get Jean Valjean to conform to the stars, to his existing order somehow. Then he'll show him some compassion and mercy, but that compassion and mercy is based upon the fact that Jean Valjean proves that he's going to comply to his rule book or his good book, whatever his norms and rules are. So that mercy and compassion doesn't come about because members of group 5 empathize with the feelings, thoughts, or perspectives of others. They have a lot of trouble doing that. They don't empathize with others, you're in the wrong group. That's too bad. Maybe they'll empathize with you because you picked the wrong group. That's kind of too bad for you. But they don't really empathize by being able to penetrate and get inside your feelings, your thoughts, your perspectives. And they don't want to do that. Anything outside their cultural, societal, and religious belief systems, they don't want to be exposed to. It's too threatening for them. And also, one of the reasons is their minds aren't developed to that level. Not to the level of what Bailey really considers to be on the mental plane, which is where you're starting the process of introspection and of true insight and mastery of, not repression of, your feelings and thoughts and behaviors. Instead, group 5 types tend to live in a black and white universe of right and wrong, good and evil. Inclined to form opinions based on their conditioned beliefs, they tend to judge others and want to solve problems quickly. That way they can get back into their comfort zones and maintain their sense of superiority over others. Now, if you watch the entire Fiddler of the Roof movie, we see Tevye doing that with not as much confidence as Javert is doing it. You know, Javert is much more entrenched in group 5 than Tevye is, but it's the same thing. I need to get back in my comfort zone. I need to feel superior over you. And the faster I can do that, the better. That means that those who conform to the rules are good, those who do not are bad. And here's an important point. Shades of gray, relativistic points of view, in-depth insights, they're not tolerated very well. I mean, again, good guys are those who follow the norms and rules of the family, group, or organization that I belong to. How you earn respect and develop a reputation is you conform to those rules and you help to enforce those rules on others. Otherwise, if you don't conform, you're bothersome, or maybe you start to become a threat, or maybe you're just simply nuts. So again, they have black and white thinking. They're bonded to others so long as they conform. Otherwise, they'll throw family members out. Mercy and compassion is dependent on your compliance. They enjoy feeling superior to others. They tend to ridicule and marginalize others easily. They want simple solutions to their complex problems. And now we're going to watch a clip that I really like, in part because it's really funny. And basically, we're going to see some group 5 tendencies in this as well. Let's enjoy this.
Dr. Switzer?
Yes, come in. I'm just washing my hands.
I'm Catherine Bigman. Janet Carlisle referred me.
Oh, yes. Fear of being buried alive in a box.
Yes, that's me. Should I lay down?
Oh, no, we don't do that anymore. Just have a seat. And let me tell you a bit about our billing. I charge $5 for the first 5 minutes, and then absolutely nothing after that. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Too good to be true, as a matter of fact.
Well, I can almost guarantee you that our session won't last the full 5 minutes. Now, we don't do any insurance billing, so you would either have to pay in cash or by check.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't make change.
All right.
And go.
Go.
Well, tell
What?
me about the problem that you wish to address.
Oh, okay. Well, I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. I start thinking about being buried alive and I begin to panic.
Has anyone ever tried to bury you alive in a box?
No, but truly thinking about it does make my life horrible. I mean, I can't go through tunnels or be in an elevator or in a house, anything boxy.
So what you're saying is you're claustrophobic.
Yes, that's it.
All right, well, let's go, Catherine. I'm going to say 2 words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life.
Well, shall I write them down?
Well, if it makes you comfortable, it's just 2 words. We find most people can remember them.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, here they are. Stop it!
I'm sorry?
Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T.
So, what are you saying?
You know, it's funny. I say 2 simple words, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who say exactly the same thing you're saying. I mean, this is not Yiddish, Catherine. This is English. Stop it.
So, I should just stop it.
There you go. I mean, you don't want to go through life being scared of being buried alive in a box, do you? I mean, that sounds frightening.
It is.
Then stop it.
I can't. I mean, it's been with me since childhood.
No, we don't go there. Just stop.
So I should just stop being afraid of being buried alive in a box.
You got it. Good go. Well, it's only been 3 minutes, so that will be $3.
Actually, I only have a 5, so.
Well, I don't make change.
Then I guess I'll take the full 5 minutes.
Fine. All right. Well, what other problems would you like to address?
I'm bulimic. I stick my fingers down my throat.
Stop it! Nut of some kind? Don't do that.
But I'm compelled to. My mom used to call me fatty.
No, we don't go there.
But I've been having this dream.
No, we don't go there either.
But my horoscope did say.
We definitely don't go there. Just stop it. What else?
Well, I have self-destructive relationships with men.
Stop it! You want to be with a man, don't you?
Yes.
Well, then stop it. Don't be such a big baby.
I wash my hands a lot.
That's all right.
It is?
I wash my hands all the time. There's a lot of germs out there. Yeah, don't worry about that one.
I'm afraid to drive.
Well, stop it! How are you going to get around? Get in the car and drive, you kook. Stop it!
You stop it! You stop it!
What's the problem, Catherine?
I don't like this. I don't like this therapy at all. You're just telling me to stop it.
And you don't like that?
No, I don't.
So you think we're moving too fast? Is that it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
All right, then let me give you 10 words that I think will clear everything up for you. You want to get a pad and a pencil for this one?
All right.
Are you ready? All right, here are the 10 words. Stop it or I'll bury you alive in a box!
So, I mean, it's humorous in a way because we wish everything was that simple, that we could just say, stop it, and we would be done with it. But some of the things you see about Group 5 is he's an expert. You know, he's gone to college, he's got an education, but you also see he's chemomonastic. His mind is still conditioned a lot by his emotional responses, and his empathy is pretty conditional as well. You know, she needs to conform to his stop it, or she's a kook, she's nuts, those kinds of things. So that's one of the reasons outside of its humor value. And we can either find her character funny or his character funny, or just simply what I find most amusing is wishing life was that simple when it's not. But that's pretty much what Group 5 wants. It wants life to be that simple so it can get back to its comfort zone. And we kind of see that even in the character that Bob Newhart is playing as the psychologist there, where he just wants to get back in his comfort zone. That's why she needs to stop it right away. So unlike those in group 3, who I've said before may relish being the anti-hero or bad guy or rebel, and may even glorify and breaking norms and resorting to violence, those in group 5, they want to see themselves as the hero or the good guy. Tevye doesn't see himself as bad, the fiddler on the roof, when he ostracizes his daughter. Javert doesn't see himself as bad when he's hunting down a guy that's already spent 10 years in prison for stealing a loaf of bread. And the psychologist doesn't see himself as bad when he is hurtful, demeaning, degrading, and emotionally violent to the woman in that situation. They can be physically violent too. They are not bad people. They're good people from their perspective, from the perspective of the cultural society, the religious group that they belong to. And it explains why when they do harm others, it's thought to be for their own good. Bob Newhart is doing that for her good so she can get better. Javert is doing it for Jean Valjean's good because he's a bad guy that needs to go back to prison. In short, a violent act is good when a group 5 member indulges in it to maintain and force the status quo. And a violent act is bad when others do the same thing and upset the status quo that those in group 5 are trying so hard to maintain. So to those in group 5, a violent or abusive act is necessary to keep the peace and to reestablish law and order. Violence is even good and necessary as long as you're on the right side of the law, the war, or the cause that you are advocating. You know, you should have read the right book. You should have been part of the right group. So that's part of what they see and how they see things. Still, at some level, these behaviors are harmful and they do recognize it. They feel bad when they have to do these things to other people. It eats away at them. And deep down, they worry that maybe they're hypocrites. So to protect themselves, they need to find increasingly find ways to justify and defend these harmful behaviors. Like those in group 4, they may drink, smoke, drug their way into emotional oblivion, but a big difference between them and those in group 4 is group 5, if they do this, they won't do it in a way where it hurts their reputation and overall success. They'll either know how to repress it, cover it up, hide it, manage it, control it, so that they can maintain the outer appearance of their goodness. Group 4 has a much harder time doing that, as we saw in some of the clips of group 4 when I did that class. Those in group 5 also tend to resort to projection and blame, which we talked about a little bit already, making it somebody else's fault if they resort to behaviors that their culture, society, religion deem unacceptable. I didn't do it, the devil made me do it. You know, they'll come up with some way to blame others so they can remain good in their own eyes and maintain the status and goodies others have bestowed on them. If we consider that stop it clip we just saw, you know, the psychologist there could say, you know, it's not my fault I had to say stop it to her over and over in an abusive way. She was just had too many problems. She was just too emotionally thick and dense, and she was just indoctrinated into too many crazy things like listening to her dreams and astrology. And, you know, it's not my fault. It's the fault of whoever told her that she should come be my client in the first place. In other words, you kind of see how this game works. And this is, again, why Bailey considers this group relatively unthinking. It's not that they can't think. It's not that they don't go to college and get an education. She considered the majority of human beings in group 5. It's that their thought processes are conditioned by their culture. They're too oriented by their desires, and they're too much still influenced by their emotions. So again, they want to be seen as good. They tend to have double standards. It's good for me, but not for you. They tend to engage in emotional, physical violence, control, abuse. but they do it for others' own good. They have mental reasoning that's determined by their conditioning. They rarely recognize their entitlements. Why? Because they're safe, they're secure. And if you're not, because you're in groups 4 or 3, or you're in the wrong kind of group 5 group, that's too bad. You know, you just weren't chosen by God in the right way, or you just didn't know how to do what you were told. And they have a great deal of difficulty challenging their conditioning. So now we're going to watch a clip that might be kind of hard to consider. This is from the movie We Were Soldiers. And, you know, it's really going to illustrate how, if you're in the right group, believing you're doing the right thing, even if it's going to war and killing others when your good book says, thou shalt not kill, you know, you have to do it. You can't not do it, because if you don't do it, what choice do you have? What's going to happen? And so the whole thing about being courageous and being a hero for doing the right thing and being disciplined and being ordered and following orders, you're really going to see that all in here. Now, from the perspective of Group 5, this is really a great way to be. And I'm not saying myself that there aren't times when maybe we have to go to war. But from the level of higher groups, especially groups 8, 9, and 10, ideally we're trying to build a world where we're using plenty of other techniques so that we never have to go to war in the first place. You're also going to see in this clip, Mel Gibson is playing the main character here, that he has some of that inner conflict, inner anxiety about what he's doing. He's trying to repress it. He's trying to manage it, but you'll still see that it's there.
Daddy, what is a war?
It's when some people try to take the lives of other people. And then soldiers like your daddy have to, you know, it's my job to go over there and stop them.
Welcome to the new cavalry. We will ride into battle, and this will be our horse.
Fly into hostile territory, outnumbered 10,000 miles from home. They want to fly with you for some reason. I guess it's because they think you're the best.
I suppose I have a choice in all this.
You sure don't.
I have today ordered to Vietnam 125,000 men. Additional forces will be needed later.
We'll be landing under fire, gentlemen. Men will die. We are going into battle against a tough and determined enemy.
It's pitch black. I can't see anything. We need illumination on the perimeter.
Men are so young, and when I look at them, I see our boys.
What do you think about being a soldier and a father?
I hope that being good at the one makes me better at the other.
When we go into battle, I will be the first to set foot on the field, and I will be the last to step off. But we will all come home together.
Do you know the most common thing an American soldier says when he's dying on the battlefield? Tell my wife I love her.
Those are my men out there, and I'm going in to get them.
You men have done a hell of a job today. It won't get through us, sir. You can count on it.
So I really need to emphasize something. You know, I'm talking about this group, again, as if I'm distant from it somehow, and in a way that's unfortunate. Because it's not like I'm in the right group and they're in the wrong group. That's not the way to approach any of this. Each one of these groups is a developmental stage, and each group has its beauty and its gift and its limitations. And it's always easier to see the limitations when we're at the next step. But even though we're at the next step, again, it's very important that we take the good out of each one of these groups. So there are many things to value. The loyalty, the attempt to be dignified even in difficult situations, the wanting to care for those even though they're in your group instead of outside your group, you're still trying to care for those within your group. The discipline, and that's a big difference between this and group 3. Group 3 may be recruited to go into war, and they'll be good warriors, but they won't be as disciplined. They won't be as responsible. You're going to have to watch out for them. You're going to have to manage them a lot better because they could kind of go overboard. They'll crack under pressure much more easier. They'll come out with PTSD a lot more because they don't have the same kind of cultural religious systems that help them cope with and deal with these things more. So all of this is really important for us to consider as we continue to move through here. So no matter how hard they try, members of group 5, they often possess a lot of anxiety and self-doubt. I mean, they want to be accepted, respected, and viewed as good people. They're trying to do the right thing based upon what they understand that right thing to be. And if others see them as bad or as hypocrites, it can be very hard on them. You know, even if, you know, somebody is primarily in a group 5 is going to watch this video, they would really probably take a lot of offense to some of the things I'm saying here. They'd be wounded in the heart, like I'm not understanding them enough here, you know, because they don't want to be seen as bad. They don't want to be seen as hypocrites. They really are trying to do the right thing, more so than those in groups 3 and 4 are doing, that's for sure. And even, as we're going to find out, more so than those in group 6 are doing. So they have a lot of cognitive dissonance, and cognitive dissonance is defined as being inconsistent in your thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. In other words, at some level, they know they're not walking the talk. For example, they may preach to others, thou shalt not kill. That might be in the good book of their Bible or whatever religious belief system. But then they're going to war where thousands and millions are being slaughtered. They may kill a few hundred themselves. They may beat their children, and as they do so, say, this is for your own good, or I'm doing this because I love you. They view themselves as faithful and loyal spouses and partners, but then, you know, they may be off at war, having an illicit affair here and there, or they may be away from the office, you know, away at the office a lot, and you know, having an affair, but again, it's not really their fault. The devil made them do it. Or it was the fact that they were away at war a long time, or boys will be boys, you know, whatever reasons they use. And it's not just men that have affairs, whatever reasons they use. And they is also can be us, whatever reasons we use, just to let you know. Because we too can have that cognitive dissonance. So how do group 5 people deal with cognitive dissonance? Well, I'm going to outline some of the tactics. One is compartmentalization. Like Scarlett O'Hara's famous line in the movie Gone with the Wind at the end, when she's made a mess of her life and a mess of how she was with Rhett Butler. I really liked that movie when I was young. I watched it a few times again when I'm older, and I'm like, man, Rhett, you did the right thing. You just told that woman to just take a walk, basically. I mean, Scarlett O'Hara isn't wrapping her head around the fact that she needs to change. She's just going to compartmentalize and not think about it. She's going to think about it tomorrow, because tomorrow is another day. So as we mentioned before, those in group 5, they tend to deny and project. You're the bad person, not me. But projection can become dangerous if it's used to excess, because it results in controlling, abusive, and persecutory behaviors. Now, a healthier path would maybe be to take a look at and atone for what you've done. Well, those in group 5 will do some of that. They will confess, they will repent, but too often they do that in a way where they're not really evolving spiritually. They're not really inclined to introspection. Too often, confession is just a way to get off the hook without having to grow spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, or behaviorally. Now, what do you do if compartmentalization and confession don't manage your cognitive dissonance? Well, another way you can do it is you can simply try to rewrite the rules, making your hypocrisy seem perfectly all right to indulge in. And actually, this is something that group 6 members very often resort to. We'll find that out in the next class. But as for group 5 people, another thing that they can do is they just can't handle the cognitive dissonance anymore. You know, they may have followed the good book. They may have been a soldier. They may have gone to war. They may have believed it was for a right cause. And yet they can't handle some of the things that they saw, some of the things that they did. And unfortunately, that's where they can take the path of self-destructing. So again, they tend to compartmentalize and avoid dealing with something. They like to deny what they're doing. They tend to blame and project their faults into others. They become self-righteous, and cruel, even to the point of persecution. Javert is persecuting Jean Valjean. They repent, but they don't really change their behaviors. It's not like Jesus in the Bible said, go and sin no more. They just go and do it again, and then maybe go to confess another time or take a bath in the Ganges or something to try and make themselves feel pure, but they haven't really changed. Or they'll self-destruct when cognitive dissonance is not resolved. So we're going to look at that kind of self-destruction. We're going to go back and revisit a clip from Les Miserables. Now, you're looking here at Jean Valjean. And Jean Valjean and Javert are talking to each other. Now, to give you a little context, Jean Valjean, when he escaped from prison, went on to become an extraordinary human being. He changed. He reformed. He became a much better person. He became introspective and much more conscious. And in doing that, he not only made his life better, he became the mayor of a town, and he made the lives of a lot of other people better. And when he discovered that he had accidentally wounded somebody that was an employee of his in an egregious way, he atoned for it through his actions, through his words, through his behaviors, through his lifelong commitment. And he helped a lot of other people. He saved some lives. And one of the lives that he ended up saving is Javert's life, which you're going to hear Javert talk about. But as this clip starts, Javert's life has just been saved because Jean Valjean was given Javert to basically kill. And instead, Jean Valjean let him free. And after he let him free, what he did is then try to rescue, that's where this clip starts, the man that wants to marry his daughter. It's not really his daughter, it's the daughter of the woman that he egregiously harmed, which he then took and raised. So here he is trying to do the right thing, and he's even going to agree in this clip, okay, I'm going to turn myself in, Javert. I'll turn myself in, but let me save this young man's life. So that's where it's going to start. Look down, Javert. He's standing in his grave, meaning the young man is standing in his grave unless Jean Valjean gives him help. And what we find out is Javert can't put all this cognitive dissonance together anymore. This is just not adding up. The worldview that Javert had in the previous clip we saw, where he's so confident, is now so shaken by who is this guy? Obviously, Jean Valjean is not in group 5. He's far beyond group 5. But Javert can't handle it anymore. So when you see Javert doing this in the clip, What he's doing is he's hanging himself. Now, obviously, this is a theatrical performance on stage, so we have to just get the insinuation that Javert is hanging himself at the end. But when he says there's no way to go on and he does this, what he's doing is he's killing himself through suicide.
You, Javert, I knew you wouldn't wait too long. The fatal servant at his post once more. This man's done no wrong and he needs a doctor's care. I warned you I would not give in. I must be swayed. Another hour yet, and then I'm yours, and all our debts are paid. The man of mercy comes again, and towards of justice. Our time is running short. Standing in his grave, give way, take it, well done. There is a light to save. My mind, I will be waiting to pour 601. Who's this man? What sort of devil is he to have me caught in a trap and choose to let me go free? It was his hour at last to put a seal on my fate, wipe out the past to wash me clean of the slate. All it would take was a flick of his knife. Vengeance was his and he gave me back my life. Damned if I live in the death of a thief. Damned if I yield at the end of the chase. I am the law and the law is not mocked. I'll spitty right back in his face. There is nothing on earth that we share. It is either Valjean or Javert. How can I now allow this man to hold dominion over me? This desperate man whom I have hunted. He gave me my life, he gave me freedom. I should have perished by his hand. It was his right. It was my right to die as well. Instead I live, but live in hell. And my thoughts fly apart. Can this man be believed? Shall his sins be forgiven? Shall his crimes be reprieved? And must I now begin to doubt? Who never doubted all these years? My heart is stone, and still it trembles. The world I have known is lost in the shadow. Is he from heaven or from hell? And does he know that granting me my life today, this man has killed me? Even so, I am reaching, but I fall, and the stars are black and cold as I stare into the void of a world that cannot hold. I'll escape now from that world, from the world of Jean Valjean. There is nowhere I can turn, there is no way to go.
So every time I watch this, I still have so much compassion for Javert's character and compassion for all of us struggling with group 5, you know, how difficult it is to have spent so long trying to build a life of security and then to have it upset. You know, even the stars are dark and cold suddenly by things we don't understand, we can't comprehend. It's just too much for us. So I have tremendous compassion for that. And also with Jean Valjean, one of the things, and maybe it's why Les Miserables is a play, a book, a movie, it's been done as a movie a few times, that moves people so much, is the way that Jean Valjean himself is with Javert. He's not judging Javert. He's not making him bad or evil. He's having real insight and understanding and compassion for him. He's working with Javert's character with skillful means. It's still too much for Javert. Javert can't take it in. But Jean Valjean's not resorting to blame or any of the other things we're going to see in a moment here. He's resorting to something very different that Group 5 doesn't understand. And that's why Javert takes his life in the end. So in summary, here's the difficulty with Group 5. They're all in their own tribal groups. In the Bailey system, yeah, tribes start in Group 3, integrals red, but they're really full-blown at Group 5 in her model. And each one knows that their group is right, whether it's because it's their Torah or their Bible or their Quran or their Communist Party or their Democrats or their Republicans or their Socialist or they're women, or they're men, or they're black, or they're white, whatever it is, they know that they're right. Why? Because that's how they were conditioned. But things change. What do they do when things change? Well, we're going to look at Group 5 ways to try and cope with those who are different. One of the first ways is they'll try and either themselves repent and conform or get the people within their group to repent and conform. Remember, confession and repentance is about coming back into the fold. It's about conforming again, admitting you were wrong and going back into the arms of your group, or you're going to have to try something else, which is maybe you realize that you were not within the group and repented and conformed, but you're in the wrong group altogether. And all you need to do now is convert and acknowledge that we're right and you're wrong. Our book is right. Our religion is right. Our way of viewing the world is right. Our political party is right. And your group is wrong. So long as you convert, it's good. We're safe. We're secure. We're not afraid anymore. And if that doesn't work, then we're going to try projection. The problem is you didn't repent and conform. You didn't convert if you were an out group and get into our in group. You're just bad. You're just nuts. You just need to stop it. And if that doesn't work, then maybe we'll try blaming you. You know, it's not me that has the problem. It's you that has the problem. So, you know, I have to abuse you and punish you here for your own good because you're the hypocrite, not me. You're the one that doesn't know better, not me. You're the stupid one, not me. Whatever blame tactic we're going to take. And if that doesn't work, then we're going to start to set up barriers or walls. If we need to, our group will just move to another part of town or another part of the country where we can be safe and we can live in peace. Or we'll get you to move to another part of town and another part of the country. Or we'll put up a wall, whether it's the Chinese wall that was put up a long time ago, or the wall that they want to build between Mexican and American border of the United States. You know, we'll just build a wall, or I'll block you, or on social media, or on my cell phone, or, you know, whatever kind of barrier I can set up psychologically within, or psychologically without, and barriers aren't always bad. They can help us de-escalate. They can help us sort things out. They can help us in some ways, but what they typically do in group 5 is they help us go right back to our status quo, and we can feel nice and safe and secure and not worry about the others out there anymore. Or if those others are going to continue to be a problem, we can try and suppress and control them. We can put them into boxes or cages or concentration camps or whatever we have to do to make sure they stay away from us. We can also try and suppress and control our own inner psyches, which you see the character of Javert doing a lot until the very end there. But maybe that doesn't work. Well, then we've got to be violent. Then we've just simply got to get rid of you. Or if that doesn't work, we can give into despair and maybe we just get rid of ourselves. So these tend to be the different ways that group 5 members cope with the world around them. There's only one problem with all of this. It's not so easy anymore in a world where we're all interconnected, in a world where we have an internet. We're struggling. And if group 5 really is the dominant group on the planet, then it's in real crisis right now because these methods aren't working very well anymore. So what do we do? Well, we're either going to have a stronger effort to get other people to repent and conform and convert, or we'll try and box them in and control them, or we'll try and blame and create barriers and project, or we're going to have all-out violence and despair, or we're going to evolve. And that's where we're going to go next in our class as we go into groups 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So as I like to do, I'm going to finish this off again with a little bit of comparison with integral. And, you know, we're seeing that in the Bailey model, group 3 and red, I put together, group 4 and amber, I put together, group 5 and integrals amber expert, I put together. But really, things are starting to break down more and more in the integral model and the Bailey model. And that's something that I'll show more and more as we keep going. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening in on this class. I know it was a bit of a long class for you, but I hope that you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next class. Have a good day. Bye.